All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. And thank you. I'd like to begin just by saying thanks. The whole reason that I'm doing this reading today is because of your support. You helped me reach another milestone, which I really appreciate. I started doing these videos in 2015. Hard to believe, right? And I wasn't sure what to expect, but it's been a really welcoming experience. And whenever I hit one of the milestones, I like to give back a little bit. So this is a bonus reading. Apollo's here, ready for us to celebrate and begin. Let's talk a little bit about the format today. It's going to deviate a bit from usual. First of all, everybody's welcome, and there'll be messages for everyone here. This will not be a sign-by-sign sort of reading. That's going to be on Sunday, so feel free to join me. What we're going to be doing today is looking at two sort of sections, so big deviation from my normal approach. I will start off with channeled messages because when I show up, I always have something to talk about at the beginning coming from spirit. So I'll share that with you. It'll be a little shorter than usual, but then we'll get into a special topic that all of you voted on, which is to tune into that inner compass and connect with your guides. And I think that's really appropriate because a lot of the questions that the YouTube members here asked me, and even some of the Patreon supporters asked, was about how to connect to your guides, to your angels, to your higher self. So it makes sense why this particular choice was chosen as number one. So we'll be looking at that. And then afterwards, I'm going to look at some of the questions that you provided for me and talk about intuitive development, talk about my journey, what got me here, etc. Because I think a lot of these are relevant to all of us. So I try to pick the questions that I think will resonate the best. All of these questions were previously submitted. That just helps me not have to have my glasses, and my moderator doesn't have to work as hard here. So, and it's also a perk for all the members that support me every single month. So if you'd like to join and partake in future milestones and sort of engagements like this, I pinned all of the information in the comment above. I'm also going to put a link to upcoming videos. So if you're brand new and you want to know what I'm doing or what I've done, you can go to my website. It's right here. This is all the December dates, but if you click up above and look at you can see everything that's going to be live as well. All right, so let's get into things. A couple of quick notes as we're getting started here. As I said, Maria is going to be my moderator. She can answer any high-level questions that you have. If you would like to show some support, just like, let's see, is it Annalie? Yes, just like Annalie did right now, you can use this particular icon by the emojis. It's also a place where you can join the channel. A lot of times people ask, what's the difference between Patreon and YouTube? You get a few more icons here, plus your name is highlighted. The same core perks though, but if I had to choose the two, I think it's just like Carol there. I think it's fun to join here because I see it in real time. But yeah, equal perks. You get to choose the price range on Patreon. That's the main difference. And if you'd like to join me on social media, so you can get reminders and see the handwritten notes that I write every time that I come on air here, you can look at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, also my website. I'm at Nicholas Ashbaugh on all social media except Twitter, which is an Ashbaugh. All right, let's get started, and we'll talk a little bit more in the middle about how to kind of connect and everything. But I have a lot to talk about today. So your totem, your spirit totem today is something cool that I don't think I've talked about, or I haven't talked about for a while. So let me pull open the browser here and show you. It's a sea urchin. So as I was getting ready today, it was kind of an odd symbol to come through, but I thought very cool actually. So sea urchin, those spiny little creatures that we see eating algae and eating other things along the rocks if you live in a sort of coastal area. Another interesting thing is they have a very unique mouth, which is called Aristotle's lantern, which we'll talk about in a couple moments as well. The name, the urchin portion of the name comes from Latin and Old French, and it's from the word hedgehog because I guess early explorers and scientists were looking and they thought, wow, this looks like a hedgehog. So that's how the name came about. So again, sea urchin, hedgehog. And when we're looking at that particular totem, the thing that I look at are the spines. And all of those, to me, it actually looks a bit like a star, which is some foreshadowing because it does have a connection to the hermit, which carries the star. But first and foremost, you have to look at the sort of defense mechanism that is all around this particular totem that we're looking at today, sea creature. So in communication, I want you to try to stay open. One of the cards that I would pull in tarot that would remind me of defensiveness would be like the Seven of Wands. knowing how and when to push back, sometimes knowing when you shouldn't be overly defensive. I would say asking questions and understanding intent is going to be really important. So figure out why someone is saying or doing something before you leap ahead and assume that it might be good or bad. So asking, listening, and then deciding is going to help you avoid getting into any sort of challenging situations. It can also just be like the King or Queen of Swords in reverse, where sometimes when you communicate, it could come across like overly sharp or too brief. So we want to make sure that there's enough of an exchange that communication is being received well. I think preparation is going to be important. This helps you not kind of be on the defensive. So prepare for a challenge, prepare for those most interesting sort of moments, and don't be afraid to make real-time adjustments to a script or to a plan. If you've ever seen a really talented or experienced public speaker, they can deal on the fly with a challenge. Maybe a light bulb explodes, maybe the power goes on and off. Anything can happen, and you just have to sort of roll with it and move on to the next thing. And also, if you're communicating with someone and you can tell that it's not connecting, right? Maybe because your choice of words isn't right for the audience, maybe because they're bringing in some baggage that you didn't know about, it's better to pause and redirect rather than to just push through. That's usually a sign of lack of preparation, lack of experience, or sometimes fear or discomfort. So just get real for a second, pull down the walls and talk face to face with someone, and then find your way back to the point. Sometimes the most effective path isn't just a straight one. It could be a little bit of a curve here, a little bit of a bend here, might be meeting the person somewhere in the middle, all right? So the flexibility is really important because this particular sea animal doesn't have it. It's just, spiny. So we want to have a little bit more flexibility there. Thinking of points, know all of the points and counterpoints. So research is going to be essential, and try to base your conversation on those points. Also covering your legal sort of all the sort of legal basis is going to be important. So if you don't know if you should do something, how you should do something, and or when you should do something, ask for advice for both the logistics and the legality of that. That's going to be really important. Next piece here, urchins have venomous spines. And this, to me, reminds me a lot of the Ten of Swords, because words can either lift up or they can sometimes deflate or they can be poisonous, right? So what we want to do is avoid anyone around us that has that sort of tendency to go to the Ten of Swords. We want to also make sure that we're not doing the Ten of Swords sort of energy exchange. Don't say something that you wouldn't like to hear. Try to elevate it. Try to put a constructive piece, not just a critical piece. I think it's important to not hide the truth. Obviously, if something needs to be said or done, say it or do it, but be kind and be compassionate and be just open about how that other person might be feeling as they receive that, and that's going to help you. Of course, Ten of Swords can also be connected to neck or back pain, also any sort of chronic pain. The main thing here is to listen to your body when it's a smaller pain before it gets to be a bigger one. So acting sooner is better than waiting, obviously, on that. Release all toxic relationships and or habits. It's a detox period here that we're in right now. And this is basically building you up so that you can move on to higher grounds, to get into something that's more worth your time and energy. One thing that I've learned with many, many years of experience of just working with certain types of people or certain types of places where there's a toxic environment, there is such a freedom that you experience when you disassociate or walk away from that, and maybe unless you've been through it or unless you've made that change, you don't realize it. So I'd like to encourage any of you who are feeling like, gosh, this situation is hopeless. Don't let that hopelessness seep into you, because hope is a good thing. And if someone's taking that away from you, that should be the number one red flag that it's time to find a place where you're inspired, where you're lifted up, where people are kind of connecting. It does get better. There are other options out there, and you should protect yourself in this situation. All right, the next fact is kind of fun. Sea urchins really don't have a brain, kind of like a jellyfish. This is a very important piece of the symbol. You need to know when to trust your intuition and when to also ask for help if you don't know something. Never be afraid to ask for time if you need to get the information. So if somebody asks you a question that you don't know, a way to do it, a way to answer this that is both honest and beneficial to you would say, great question. Let me look into it. I can get back to you tomorrow. How does that sound? I don't have enough information to comfortably answer it now, but I will by tomorrow. Or you could just say, let me look into this. I'll get back to you. That is a way of saying, I don't know, but it's a way of saying, I'll find out, because I'll find out is a lot more active than I don't know. And if you've ever been at a place where maybe there's someone that's working there and they just say, I just work here. That is a cop-out answer. You could say, let me connect you to the right person, because that is saying, not only do I work here, but I care about you, and I think I might know who can answer your question. You've delegated. You don't have to take the responsibility for that because it's probably not within your maybe your job description or your expertise, but you can say, let me see who can help you. That person's not me. So there's a lot of different ways to say, I don't know, or I don't want to do this, but do it in a stronger way. So let me get back to you, or let me connect you to the right person. Suddenly you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. Really powerful. So you still don't have to deal with all of it, but you're kind of like, you're buying time, you're getting the right connection, and you're helping someone. You would want that. Imagine if you're on the phone and you reach someone on customer service and they say, I don't know, and they hang up. Oh my gosh, you'd be so upset. So think of other people in the same light and think, you know what, we'll figure this out. Let's talk. Let me put you on hold, but I'll find somebody. All right. So the next piece is super important. Don't follow someone blindly, because I'm thinking of no brain, no thoughts, kind of like tuning out. We want to always be able to ask questions or dig in a little bit, get some clarification. So use your head and your heart. So this is your internal knowledge. This is, hey, does this make sense? Connect the two. Use your third eye as well. As I was doing some research, fun fact that I also found about the sea urchin is that its mouth is called the Aristotle's lantern. Aristotle was looking at this, connected it with a horn lantern. And as I kind of connect all these symbols together, the lantern, of course, is part of the hermit in tarot. So the star then appears in the lantern, and the sea urchin looks like a star. There's a lot of connections here. But what I'm seeing here is that you're almost protecting yourself to a fault. And I feel like really what this is about is coming out of the hermit phase into the star phase, understanding that at some point you've done all the required work. And it's sort of like fearing that graduation, walking and getting your diploma, or fearing something that you've worked so hard because you don't know what comes next. So don't fear the unknown. I was talking to Taurus just yesterday about change, transformation, that if we don't change, if we don't shift, if we don't grow, then we're not sort of progressing on a soul level. So if that's your next step, go there, and don't be afraid to be yourself. The star is very connected to its higher purpose, and it's not afraid to show its true colors. So show your true colors and shine. And finally, urchins consume. They may not have a lot of cognitive power, but they're very good at consuming. And so for you, that's actually associated with learning, ironically, since they have no brain. But Eight of Pentacles, learning, moving knowledge in and out, I would say also absorbing and growing. So this is actually a really powerful symbol that packs in a lot of little pieces. This is, by the way, how I work with, if you're new, this is how I work with totems. They're just like a tarot card. So anything in nature can be used for a symbol. And actually, one thing, this kind of answers a future question that someone had asked me, but how do you develop your intuition? I think for me, I've worked a lot through dreams. I work through spirit totems that come to me. This happened to me as I was taking a shower this morning. I just saw the sea urchin as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And I thought, okay, spirit, that's an interesting thing to talk about. So sometimes it flashes in my head. Sometimes I hear it. Sometimes I dream it. Sometimes when I'm walking, I'll connect to something outside. Spirit doesn't speak one language, just like this planet. It speaks in multiple frequencies, and it's all about how aware you are and how willing you are to connect to that. So that's why I work with totems. That's why I start things off that way, rather than just shuffling the cards and starting. To me, that's very kind of cold. I need to warm up the third eye. This is a nice way to warm it up. I show up about an hour before and do this work. And by that time, I'm ready. If I just showed up and shuffled, I wouldn't quite be here. So that's why I do it. That's why my approach is a little bit different. I hope you like it. All right, if you missed anything here, don't worry. Everything is on replay right afterwards. I also post all of these cards to the social media platforms that I showed you earlier. You can go to my website, which I will put out again since I've posted a different link here if you need to follow me. Thank you so much, by the way. I saw some really generous contributions already. And I will say thank you to everybody who donates today at the very end. But thanks to Regina for that 111. I saw that. And everybody else, the new channel members, welcome. And anybody that is a member, you can use that feature to highlight your comments. So I see a bunch of you doing that. Thank you very much. All right. Today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Normally, I would go into a Celtic Cross and I would do a bunch of mini reads looking at blessings and blocks and questions and things like that. So we're just going to do the topic that you asked me to cover. Then I'm going to go into some of the Q&A stuff. If we have any time at the end, I might do something else, but I want to make sure I can cover as many questions as possible. And then I might pull some cards as we're looking at some of those questions. So today is going to be very flexible, very interactive, a little different because I think it's fun and I like to change things up. I'm also open to doing like different types of readings over time here. So let's see. Today, I think I'm going to use the Afro Goddess one here. All right. So let's get started. Let's take a look at what's coming through and we'll go from there. Again, this is going to be looking at your compass, connecting to like your guides and seeing what messages are coming through from spirit, from your guides. I thought that it was a good choice for today because, I think a lot of the questions were about intuitive development. So let's see what the messages are from your guides, what it is that you can do to get on the right path, and we'll go from there. All right, so let me focus, and then I'll be right back after I've laid out all the cards. This is a collective, so everyone that's present gets a message. If you want to take a look at my weekly for sign-specific information, you can, plus all of the November readings are already on my channel, so you can check my playlist for more information. Since I'm looking at messages from your guides, I'll kind of be looking at this in a different perspective and when I look at the expanded forecast. So this is kind of things you might be missing or things that they really want you to pay attention to. So I'm going to try to highlight those sort of subtle things that might be going off the radar or undetected rather than just a typical reading. And if I haven't already said thank you for your support. I wouldn't be doing this without you. If you're brand new and you want to show some love, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I'd love to get to another milestone, maybe do something different for that milestone. In fact, in the comments below, and I might do a separate post, I'm going to kind of see what other types of videos you want me to do, not just for milestones, but in general. One of the things that I've started to do a lot lately too is to get your feedback because I care about it and I want to do things that both are fun for me and fun for you. Makes it more worthwhile. Okay, so let's take a look here now at the Heart card. This is your Catalyst. The Catalyst is a very interesting card because the way that I read it is it can be a way to connect to your highest good, to stay on path. But just like the word can kind of convey, it's also a way to create some action or create something in your life, start a sort of like chemical reaction. So we have a sort of Six of Swords energy if you look really closely here in the middle of the card. And then this was upside down. And we also are kind of dealing with more of a rosy color in here than the traditional green of the heart chakra, but there still is rose there as well. So what we're looking at here is finding peace with old connections in your life, possibly a relationship or even just a passion in your life that you've outgrown it. I feel like some of you you've changed a lot. We've all changed, right, over the past couple of years. There's no way that you could get through the pandemic and all the shifts in the world without having internal changes as well. So just as I was talking to Taurus the other day, this change energy is very much present right now. And for some of us, that means that we're moving away from people, places, or things that we once had a lot of love or connection to. That doesn't mean that we don't love them anymore. It just means that our heart is taking us in another direction. So assuming that your heart is the compass in the ship, and since the compass is the sort of topic today, follow your heart. That's the number one thing here that's coming through. Literally, the first message is to follow your heart. And for some of you, your heart is saying, I need to go in another direction. And the card and your guides are saying, that's okay. Let's look at the center. We have balance, achieving new balance here. I usually read the Two of Pentacles less as a resource card, more as finding a necessary balance in your life. And I've seen a very similar message coming through recently in spirit with another, it must have been either Aries or Taurus, but I've seen balance in relationships being a really important piece. So for some of you, work could be taking you away from what you love or who you love, or other obligations in life could be taking you away from that. And the reminder here is to get back to that thing that sort of lifts you up. It doesn't have to be another person. The Two of Cups usually, though, is a cooperative energy. So it might be like working with people that you love, doing something of service, some sort of an activity, connecting with your chosen family, with your sort of quote unquote, your tribe. And so finding that spiritual tribe is going to be really important here. But in order for you to do that, you're going to have to let something go. And when you get rid of the two, one of these, you have an ace. So basically, one of these things is taking you away from something that's going to be worth your time and energy. And once you let it go, you're going to find new levels of support. So if it was a resource that you were lacking, you could reach out to someone and they would be able to give you that resource. Some of you are recently in a new relationship or partnership, maybe even a business partnership. And again, this is creating a little tug of war in your life, because if you've been single for a while, or if you've been unencumbered by a job or activity, all of a sudden, this is pulling you in another direction. And it's about finding that perfect balance. So the balance is going to be between what you love to do and also who around you needs your time, energy, and support. And you're going to have to sort of sort that out. In that case, you're not going to say yes or no. It might not be that binary. But you're going to have to prioritize one over the other. In certain situations, for some of you, though, if you can let go of something, like let's say you are trying to do two things at once, focus on finishing the first and then move to the second. So if it's more of a resource or even just sort of like a time management issue, prioritization is going to be your best friend. Looking in the deep past, I talked when I saw the Urchin card about swords cards in reverse. The Ace of Swords here. One of the things that I would be saying with this is, for many of you, if the internal needle is in reverse, if you think, I can't, it won't, this never happens, I'm not worthy of this, this never happens, it won't work, then already from the beginning, from inception, you're going to face challenges. So I would like you to pull the ace and put it in the upright position and imagine that, what if, I talked about this recently, maybe in a collective as well, taking a fear, an anxiety, or a self-doubt and putting in a possibility and saying, well, it hasn't worked before, but what if I've learned enough this time that it does? Then you even set a stronger intention after that and say, you know what, I'm going to make it work. I've learned what I need to. So you start with that possibility, which is also positive, and then you go straight into the affirmative. This will work. I am doing this. So that's a way to kind of ease out of fear. And fear may not like what you do when you do that, but you're going to really benefit from this newfound strength. Don't be afraid to edit. Don't be afraid to redline things. This is a good card when it comes to digging in and fixing things. So your guides want you to be comfortable with that sort of energy, especially if you are a business person or an artist and you're very proud of what you've done, but maybe there's some opportunity for improvement. Don't be afraid. You can always save a copy over here and then try something and see how it feels. Experiment. It's okay. You might actually like what you get. A decision is at hand, and it might have already been made. If not, it probably needs to be made. And the biggest barrier between you and the next phase is acceptance of that and decision with what you want to do next. I love this Judgment card because we see that there's a portal right here as she's walking the staircase. Instead of Gabriel, we have a different sort of horn blowing here, but same sort of imagery. So some people may be waiting for you to say, I am ready, or I want to do this, or let's get started. They're waiting for you to kind of make the announcement. Some of you are dealing with the energy of someone's declaration. And the interesting thing with this is going to be very helpful if you're a parent, or if you're even just a friend and you're listening to somebody say something that they want. Unless they ask for your advice, they may not be looking for feedback. You could ask how they want you to show up for them and say, wow, this is a lot to unpack. I'm here to support you. Do you need advice, or do you just need sort of support? That way you can figure out, should I say something, or do they just want a congratulations, or do they just want me to kind of be there and listen to them because there's a lot that they're carrying. So if someone says something, they're not always asking for your advice. And so that's going to be the tricky thing, is to figure out, do you need my help, or should I just celebrate what you've shared with me? And for some people, we may not agree with it. So maybe this is a child, a friend, a partner, and they want to do something and you don't agree with it. What would be better is say, wow, this is really big news. How did you come to this decision? Get some information, figure out what if they've done their work, because you might be surprised. They could win you over as they kind of tell you about their journey. So always wait a little bit, make sure that you know what that person wants. And for yourself, acceptance takes time, but you have to accept your path and your journey before embarking on it, because if you step forward and you're not sure, or you're not ready, or you don't believe, other people pick up on that, and then that attracts people that test that. So you want to be very strong before you get to that final step. It may take you all the steps in that staircase to really feel it, but then at the end say, I'm ready, let's do this. Okay. So one of my favorite cards is in the crowning position. We have the Queen of Wands. She's magical. She can make anything work if she has to, even if she's up against a lot of odds or a brick wall. She finds a way to like dig beneath it, or float above it. So you're going to find a different way of doing something. You're going to use your brain, even though the totem today didn't have it. You're going to use your knowledge to think yourself out of a situation. You don't want to overthink. She's not reversed, so I'm not worried about that today. I want you to take an idea and really develop it. So this can be putting a thought to action, and that's really what you want to do. She's going to improve upon an initial idea. Very good time for you to step into a management position, to lead the charge, to trust yourself. Even if nobody, yourself included, has ever seen you as a leader, you have it. It's ready. You can really make something cool happen this month. And this is all about the magic. You're going to surprise yourself. Try to believe, though. Don't just try, to kind of quote Yoda. It's like do or do not. There is really no trying. So trust in the magic and the intellect and the leadership skills that you have, then you're unstoppable. Okay. She has a kind of like gravitas, this energy, this power when she enters the room. And I'm sure you've all seen someone, whether it's like a grandmother, a boss, some sort of, royalty or whatever. When they step into the room, they carry themselves in a certain way and they speak in a certain way that commands attention. So find your posture, find your vocabulary, trust yourself. It's not always about articulation, by the way. If you've ever noticed, like a performer, there can be someone that has this amazing vocal range, perfect pitch, but they don't interpret a song, right? Very well. They're just doing it technically. Then you have someone who may have a little bit raspier of a voice, or they may not hit all the notes perfectly, but you can feel it. They're belting it out. They're in the moment, and there's this connection. So it's not just about articulation. It's also about conviction, passion, and your own interpretation of something. So that's why certain types of pop music might be out there, because the person just kind of gets into the vibe of what's in the moment. So be real. I think that's the most important piece. All right, don't be afraid to take the first step. We have this Fool who normally looks very unbothered. This is one of my favorite Fool cards. She's kind of in this urban jungle, if you will. But for many of us, there's this feeling, oh my goodness, I put my glasses on. I never noticed there's like there's a little dog in the background. That's so cute. If you look way over here, see a little dog? Okay, fun fact. All right, so for some of you, it's about loyalties. I've never noticed this, and I've been reading with this card this deck for a few months. So some of you may be unready or unwilling to take a step because you're afraid what will happen with that person that I'm leaving behind. So in the case of a job, just give proper notice, leave all the tools behind that you need to, and then understand that we're kind of all on some levels replaceable when it comes to a job, particularly like just a standard job. We like to think that we're the only one that can do it, but they may suffer. They may have to put a couple of people in there, but they're going to be okay. And guess what? That actually will help them see, I should have done better at retention. That person was doing more and I should have paid them more. So don't feel bad. If you need to go. It's in your plan, basically. The next step is a step for you. So with the Fool card, what's holding you back? Talk to the person, let them know how you feel. She does hold the white rose that would be with the Death card. So she's learned the lesson of transformation and movement. And then she has a very small change purse. That's it. She's like, I'm traveling light. I'm changing. I'm moving. I've got this. Let's stop worrying about it. And you'll be okay. Everybody has to move. Everyone has to move on at some point. And this is your moment to do that if you're ready. For some of you, it's more about taking a risk or taking a leap of faith. So you don't have to leave. You could just for some of you, it might just be about putting yourself out there a little bit. Okay. Now let's go into you and how you're showing up. It's pretty good, actually. We have the King of Wands here. And guess what? Some of you are entering into a really powerful partnership this month. So when I have two of the same suit, it can definitely be a very powerful alignment. It doesn't have to be love, but it can be. And if it is sort of just a friendship or a business relationship, we have two very similar, and I would say sometimes too similar kind of people. So for you, the most important thing here is to not close down and not kind of be too expectant that the other person comes to you, because this is coming through in the ego center. So with the King of Wands in reverse here, it is not weak for you to meet someone halfway, for you to change based on feedback, for you to be open to different points of view. Good leaders are open and they congratulate and also elevate powerful people that are around them. A good leader wants a really strong staff, wants a bunch of stars. You want a galaxy that's really bright. You don't want a bunch of dim stars that are kind of like fading away. So let's put a bright galaxy around you. You're one of the brightest, but don't be afraid if someone else is super bright, because binary and triple star systems are all around in the solar system. So you're fine and you're still important, but you have someone in your midst that may be kind of your equal. Could be exciting, could be challenging, could be a little bit of competition. Nothing bad about this at all, though. Most of your cards are pretty good just in this general reading. So trust that you can both shine. You can both, quote unquote, win. There really is no winning or losing. In a love relationship, which we'll look at a little bit as I expand the forecast, I would say the big challenge here is one person's a little stubborn. This person may be you, because this is the placement of it, but I'll look at it a little bit more in a moment. Okay. So for many of you, there's a choice right now as we look at the environment. Do I stay and deal with some of the morale issues, some of the challenges, or do I just chart a new path? We see her parting the sea here and saying, yeah, I'm going to go down a different path. I don't think I need to deal with all of that stuff, because I've learned it. I've been through that. I've gone down that road, and maybe I didn't like the way that story ended. So you don't have to repeat. And she's actually getting to the bottom of things, which is what the Moon card is about. You want to go to the emotional depths and really figure it out. And she's okay as we look at this card here. I'm just going to look real close. I think we have the lobster there on the side, and hard to tell. It looks like a couple of dogs here as well. This particular artist tends to like that. But what I'm really looking at is the ability to move through something. Don't get sort of sunken into the energy of the moon, which can be fear, frustration. Again, sometimes it's even a clique, some sort of a group that you can't break into. You can chart a new path, go in a different direction. And this is highly intuitive and highly powerful, very divine feminine energy here. So trust your instincts. They're not going to lead you astray. It's also closely aligned to the Fool. This Fool decided to go on a different path. And guess what? She's finding some new friends along the way. Okay. For some of you, there could also be a really strong water sign in your midst. And that could be exciting. We'll look again at love in a second. As we're looking at your hopes, your fears, and your opportunities here, I like what I see here. I think for many of you, there's a hidden blessing coming through. We have the Four of Cups, but this is like one of the most Zen Four of Cups I've ever seen. And she's picking up on something because she's open to it, because she realizes not everything that's in front of her is all it seems to be. There could be a hidden message, there could be a hidden blessing, there could be another opportunity. And when you really get to the bottom of it, when you really sort of sort out the emotional from what matters, you can see what's really important here. Some of you may have an offer, but it doesn't feel right. I want you to trust that. And some of you may be wondering, is this it? I think that's a good question to have. Like, what else do I want to do? This can be a soul-searching card. Try not to compare yourself too much to friends, to what's out there on social media, what's going on around you. It's really about the inner journey, going back to the urchin and the lantern. It's really about what you're holding within, what you want to do. So sort your feelings, sort out what you really care about, and that's going to show you the right direction. Your heart is the compass. And guess what? The big movement this month is expansion. As long as you are expanding, as long as you're experiencing new things, then spirit, your guides, they're right behind you. And they say this is where you need to be, right? The world. So messages from your guides on this card, there's a lot. Some of you may need to move in order to accomplish the next phase of your journey. Some of you may need to put yourself out there and perhaps publish or podcast or broadcast something so that you can reach a more global audience. Globalization, if you own a business or have some sort of a product or service, could be an important part of this. There's nothing shy, there's nothing inconspicuous about the world. It is even more kind of out there than the star. In fact, that's why we kind of see a demigoddess at the center of this particular illustration. It's really about the next level. And this is the final step of something that many of you have been working on for a while. So I talked yesterday for sure about the sort of anticlimax that we can have. So if there's this anticlimactic moment where you think, what next? I want you to be finishing what you're intending on doing and then thinking of the next step. So the fool follows the world, and it's a new beginning. So never be afraid of trying something new and figure out what that next step is. So your guides want you to move on, expand, and to see the world or see something from a bigger point of view. There is nothing limited about today's reading, and there were no cards here that I would even call dark. There was nothing even moderately kind of challenging here. The only thing that gets in the way here was maybe a fear of moving on because of what might happen if you do. Sometimes that's because people use guilt, or maybe having projected this feeling of, can I do this? Will I be able to do this? Also, there could be emotional, like just the fear of change and the fear of movement for you, but you're going to be able to move through this easier than you thought. And that's what I like here. Let's expand. Let me take a quick drink here, and then we're going to expand the forecast and look at health, wealth, love, and destiny. And as we do this, again, I'm going to try to do it from the lens of what your guides would like you to take a look at. All right, so looking at health, don't be afraid to say no. There's something that's going on around you where if you were, at the ending, I always do like a yes, no question. You're getting that it's okay to say no. And that for some reason you've had a hard time saying no. So to whomever or whatever it is that you're finding that difficulty, don't be afraid. If it's on a heart and soul level what you feel like you have to do, then it's the right thing, okay? No is powerful. It's a word and it's a statement, just like yes is. You can just say no, period. There's very few words in the English language that you can just have a single word and it's a command, it's an answer, it's an affirmation, but that's kind of like no. And sometimes you have to repeat it a few times. No, I said no, I'm not going to do that. But let's try this. Or how about this? Not that though. So hold your ground, stand your ground, say no in different ways, repeat it if you need to. And if it's the first time you've said no, as I said it, I could feel something in my solar plexus for some of you. But if it's the first time that you've said no, people may not be used to it. And in fact, they may not even register it. So no sometimes requires repetition. So that's important, and it's healthy to say no. Looking at some other aspects of health. For some of you, I just want you to pay attention to your heart, both on a literal level, heart health, and also on a spiritual level. Are you happy? Are you passionate about things? If you are, good. And if you're not, this dis-ease can actually cause disease in your body. So we want to get the heart space in a happy place. Otherwise, your compass is also kind of going erratically. It's like 9 of cups reversed, up and down and up and down. So focus on happiness and heart health. And again, we saw way back at the beginning that movement would be a really important piece of this. So it's okay to move. It's okay to expand. And you've got what it takes to do that. Work-life balance and just general balance is going to be important for those of you that might have some issues with inner ear, or maybe you've had some problems with your hips or ankles or your knees. Maybe there are actual balance issues coming up. For the rest of you, it's probably just allocation of time and energy. You could be burning yourself out a little bit. So make sure that you're okay. I think that's going to be really important. Movement, but easy movement is important at any age. So maybe like swimming or walking. I'm not talking about like jogging and weightlifting or anything. Just moving the body a little bit to get the heart pumping is important. Standard disclaimer applies. You should talk to your doctor before changing anything in your physical routine. But we're talking about very light movement here. So I feel like that's okay for most of us. But the Fool is also very cool because you get to see the world around you. So just changing your environment can change your perspective. And I love that she carries Death's rose, because that also tells me that you could have a change of heart or a change of mind when you just allow yourself to be out there in the world. Take your headphones off a little bit. Listen to what's going on around you. Be present. Don't distract yourself. The Fool needs to see what's going on as well, because otherwise it can trip and fall. So no headphones, no phone. Just look at what's going on around you, especially if you are walking in a city, because that could be dangerous. But a change of environment could be really good. And I know some of you are in colder climates right now. I know we're entering into the winter season, particularly for the Northern Hemisphere. And if you live in like Scandinavia or something like that, or Canada, it's starting to get a little bit colder. So I recognize, or Russia, it's a little bit colder right now, but there's still ways to move. And even if I don't mind. I lived in colder climates before I moved to California. So the city is beautiful in any season, or an environment. Like fall is actually one of my favorite seasons, because you get to smell the leaves as they're kind of falling, and that kind of crisp autumn sort of air, and you can watch the first frost. So I think there's beauty in all seasons and in all weather. So just get out there. It'll help move your energy around a little bit. One last piece on health, and then we're going to move on, because I want to make sure I leave enough time for Q&A. But the moon is multifaceted when it comes to health. Emotional health is going to be really important. You don't have hardly any cups cards, or any cards in general. Most of the cards are upright. We maybe have a few reversed today, but most of these are upright. So I feel like overcoming a fear or an emotion is within reach right now. So you're going to get on top of your emotions. Also, if there is any sort of issues in health, particularly with reproductive or urinary tract, that's what this card can represent. I do feel like if you deal with it sooner than later, you're going to be able to manage that as well, but you want to pay attention to that. So see an OBGYN, see a urologist, make sure you're drinking enough water. All of that is important. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm looking at cards here that could signify things that might be important for you. So take care of yourself if you need to. That's it. Mostly pretty good. And we see a big shift and a big movement here. A move can also bring you this new sense of opportunity and optimism as well. Welcome to all the new channel members that are joining, by the way. All right, let's move on to your wealth card, which is about money, which is about self-worth. I'm going to put by the way, for everybody that voted for it, I will put the Midas Touch on for the weekend as well to be voted on, because I really like that one for self-worth equaling net worth. So that's what this can also be. It's not just about money and work. It can also be like how you value yourself. All right, I need my glasses for this one. It says, life is better together. This is why the Two of Cups was at the center. The Two of Cups, Two of Pentacles. You don't have to do it all alone. You can balance that. You can give one of those pentacles away. It's delegation. It says, seek assistance from your community, connect with family, friends, and others who will support you. It can be as simple as making a phone call, or today it would be like sending a text. So we see these like lovely dolphins working here together. Community cards, sometimes we don't always see Eight of Wands is a community card, Four of Wands, Two of Cups, 10 of Pentacles, 10 of Cups. There's a lot of partnership. The Lovers. There's so many different cards that can equal community. This is about one-on-one. I really do feel like you could reach out to someone that you know, and there's a lot of help, advice. So maybe you want to get advice on how to ask for a raise. Maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe you don't know how to deal with your finances and you need advice at any step of the way, whether you're just entering, the job market or you're retired and trying to figure out what to do. Someone else can help you. And as our totem today showed us, because it didn't have a brain, sometimes we don't have that knowledge. It's not bad to admit that there's a lack of knowledge. So either do the research, talk to an expert, or somehow get the information out there. Power in numbers on this. Now, if we just take that and put that to the side here, let's look at some other things that are coming through with respect to the cards and your resources. Manage them yourself if you can. Yes, work with an accountant, but you should be signing all the final checks and everything. A lot of times you'll read a story about someone in a business who's handed away all of their sort of like decision-making skills or abilities to someone else and they make a bad choice. You need to be looking at all of those final decisions. You're the boss. And in a relationship, you both are leaders because we got a king and a queen card. I don't read gender and I just read these as partners. I'm not looking at even power. When you get two of them, they kind of cancel each other out. And I would say they're just partners. So if you typically don't look at the money matters, or if your partner doesn't, get them involved. Both of you need to be making decisions so that there's no sort of finger pointing. And one person said this, the other person said that. We don't need to do that. So both are partners. That's why I like the word partner for, love rather than just husband or wife, because it's not as old fashioned. And it also, you can infer from the word that you both are kind of showing up evenly. Okay. It's okay to move on. It will be good to move on if you need to. You got to move on or move up or move out. It's movement. That's the main thing here. So need to go bigger, need to experience more. Expansion is necessary. If you've hit a glass ceiling, go somewhere else if you need to. Okay. For those of you that are retired, some of you are also missing that connection. So we have this water card and we see her kind of walking in that. So this is someone that's seeking that friendship and that love. And we'll be talking about that in just a second here as I look at relationships. So if you're retired or if you've been teleworking or have just been really socially distancing because of the pandemic, maybe it's time to find a way to reconnect with people, either on a one-on-one basis if you feel safe, or again, just kind of FaceTiming and Zooming and Skyping and any other sort of telepresence, WhatsApping, which by the way, I don't use a lot of. I'm going to hit that on that right now because that comes in the comments all the way. So if anybody ever says it's me and they're going to contact you, that's not real. It's public service announcement because I get tired of those comments and below. Okay, that's everything for work. One last thing is that you might need to actually physically move to find an opportunity or to maximize an opportunity. Okay, cool. Let's look at relationships. We have the wombat spirit here, be at home, which just connects to what I was talking about. So the wombat is a very interesting energy for love. It looks cuddly, but I've used it as a totem before. It actually has very strong claws, so you want to be careful. And I would say for many of you here with this home piece, I think it's really important for you to feel comfortable in the relationships that are in your life. So if you can't be yourself at work, in a relationship with your friends or around your family, it speaks more to them and their conditional love than you, and maybe that something's wrong with you. If you're being authentic, if you're being kind, if you're being true to you, and it's not enough, then something's wrong with the core relationship there. So you should be able to be at home and be yourself in the relationships. That's the message from your guides and from this card. It's a slight kind of deviation from the face value, but that's what I'm getting as I look at this particular symbol. Let's kind of look at the three different levels that I like to: being in love, looking at those of you. Okay, so for those of you in a relationship, looking for a relationship, or single and happy. And we're going to look at it from the perspective of your guides, like what are you missing? So if you're in a relationship right now, power dynamics are actually showing up as you are equals. But day to day, it doesn't always show up that way sometimes. The other thing that I'm looking at, so I want you to see yourself as an equal, even on all the levels that matter, and not feel less than, basically. Some of you have already made a decision to move on. Very interesting. We have judgment being the decision. We have fool being the step. We have the world being the finality of this. So this could be deciding to get engaged. This could be deciding to get divorced. This could be deciding to ask your partner if they want to make a necessary change in waiting. And if it's not enough, moving on. There's a big shift that's happening in some core relationships this month. The good news is we do have an expansion card at the end. So either way you look at it, whether you stay or whether you go, it's going to be fine. And you already know what to do. You already know what to talk about. You probably already know how they're going to react. The judgment card has to step into the fool card. This is the thinking and the overthinking. This Ace of Swords and this the fool card, just it's about getting letting your mouth start to speak, and it's all going to be okay if you do that. All right. So as long as the two of you can support each other, everything will be okay. But if that support is absent, it's time to move on. For those of you looking for love, absolutely a great time to look for love. I think you need to sort out your schedule first, because you may not have as much time to dedicate to the relationship that's incoming as you'd like. But if you do, then I start to see some good stuff coming through. We have a lot of fire energy. We have water energy as well. You're coming through with the sort of fire energy. Even if you're not a fire sign, I'm seeing like this sort of inner passion, and that could be what attracts people to you. I think the important thing for you is not to be afraid to make the first move, not to be afraid of feeling things, especially if you've loved and lost, either lost a person physically or just separated from them. This is just a chance for something new and something bigger. It looks pretty good to me, actually. So if you're looking for love, I'm seeing an equal partner, a little stubborn. You or the other person a little stubborn because of the similarities, but I do see some great potential there. So this is a great time. But you might have to say the first word. You might have to kind of break the ice, is what I'm seeing. If you're single and happy and you're not really focusing on relationships, you still have a really attractive energy here. And you probably need to work with people anyway. I glanced at the chat and I saw some people saying that they like to be a hermit. And I'm with you on that. Sometimes it's really good to kind of just have your own time and space. But when it comes to certain matters, like I said, financial, business, and possibly even just your own happiness, there may be some important pieces where you need to connect. So don't be afraid to partner up, because that's going to help on some things. But we still see a big move here that it's so clear when you look at judgment, fool, and the world. So that's past, present, and like distant future here. So recent, past, near future, and future. So I see you moving. I see a big shift happening. And the movement can be literal or it can be figurative. So you're not going to be stuck. Let's say this much for sure. You're not going to be stuck in your life. People are going to show up in a way that you didn't expect. And you're going to be able to move mountains or like part the water here. You're going to be able to do more than you thought. So I feel like this is a really powerful period for you with people in your life. Does not have to be love, but you're going to see a lot of movement, people coming in, people going out. So doors are opening and shutting, but in an exciting and an important way. All right, your final card, and some of you are going to be like, we have the tarantula. If you're an arachnophobic person, just look away for a second. But the tarantula is a super powerful totem, and I love this this image as well. So I'll hold it back a little so it's a little less frightening. But the tarantula is deceptively powerful. It looks kind of slow and lethargic, but it can actually move fast when it needs to. And it's a very good hunter as well. So when we're looking at this, and by the way, because I've used it as a totem before, they don't have a traditional web. Sometimes they spin a little bit around, depending on where they're at. There's like a little bit around where they're living, but it's not a traditional web. So if we look at the absence of a web with a spider, what I would say for you is you don't have to get caught up in other people's baggage. You don't have to get caught up in the web that other people are weaving. What's more important here is what you're trying to do. What's your perspective? Your power is sometimes overlooked, but when you show it, people remember it. And I really do feel like leadership power is coming through in a strong way for you. And if you can just take a chance say what's on your mind or show it. Sometimes people need to see that. Then you are the sort of Queen of Wands, tarantula, black cat, magic energy, which I like. We even have a very similar color scheme between these. And someone was commenting, I really enjoy too the totem research because it sticks with you. Because I've seen a wombat, I've done the research before, I've seen a tarantula before. This is why the original symbols for tarot, kind of getting again into a future question for you, they were just developed by human beings. They sat around and they decided, like, how are we going to connect with certain symbols? And they created this language. So some of what I do is kind of like, I know that in a past lifetime, I was like a druid or a shaman, because a lot of this, I resonate with nature and different types of just like earth energy or earth magic. So the symbols are not just the 78 cards in a tarot deck or the 54 in an oracle deck. You can make up your own. Just like languages, there's different, like we just made up different letters and different alphabets, and we can say the same thing, but it sounds differently. So you can create your own language of intuition. You're not limited to any of this stuff. That's why I started to go a little bit deeper and more beyond that, because if I just stuck with traditional card spreads and didn't kind of pull in all this other stuff, I feel like you're not growing and it gets a little boring. So I love using nature and animals and science and the universe, because it's all part of the symbology, right? So that's why I kind of do what I do the way that I do it. I'm going to ask for one final card from your guides, and then we're going to go into Q&A. I feel like this was a good and a very kind of like uplifting and optimistic sort of reading, and I never know what to expect, but whoever showed up today, there's a lot of positivity, and I picked it up in the cards. So let's look at one big idea for the year, or the year ahead. And maybe I'll do something, I think towards New Year's, I'll do a special kind of like year ahead reading. So we'll save that. But like, just what do you need to do to kind of really get on the right path? Because I'm looking at December a lot right now, and we're looking at, sort of like shifting through the, we had the Day of the Dead that we just got through in Halloween, but also New Year's is very much the same thing. So it's all portal energy from this day that you're watching it until January 1st. So we have the Tear card here, which is really a beautiful and kind of like ominous card. So the interesting thing in spiritual paths is that it doesn't have to be all rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes when we go through a difficult passage, when there's something that makes us feel sad, angry, upset, disappointed, it gives us the context that we need to appreciate the top of the mountain. So if you didn't have to go up that kind of perilous journey to get to the top, you wouldn't appreciate the top as much. So everything that you've been through in this year and in your life in general may have comprised this sort of energy of the Tear card here. But look what you get. You get this sort of amazing third eye energy coming through. You get insight, you get context, and you're exactly where you need to be right now. All you have to do is look at the energy of this Four of Cups card. Go within and you'll see what the universe is giving you. It's an ace. The Four of Cups is so misunderstood. It's not like you have an opportunity right there. Same thing with the Ace of Pentacles. You maybe have too much of a good thing and you just have to pick something to focus on. So an opportunity awaits you if you can get past some of the energy that has been a little bit darker or a little bit more uncomfortable. That shadow work has led you to the light. So amen to that, right? I think that's it for the general sort of forecast for today. And your guides really, if I were to just summarize a little bit more, I would say it is about finding your power. They want you to know that you are a powerful person. You know that, but maybe you need to hear that from me. Maybe you've never heard that before. That movement is okay, that people will get by even without you. You can still keep in touch, but you shouldn't be staying behind because you're afraid that someone else can't do something. And I'm not talking about if you're a caretaker. I'm talking about, sort of like issues of like, if I leave this job, no one will do it the way that I did it. If you're truly ready and you're no longer connected to it, it's time to move on. Your passion can part the waters and it can move mountains. So I've been talking about this for a while. I had to reiterate it again today because of the heart card. So trust your heart. It is your compass. Trust your power. It will bring you into something better. And trust that the path and the journey so far, even if it's been the road less traveled, or it hasn't always been rainbows, you're headed towards a new rainbow. Let's put it that way, a new star. And the star and the light and the energy is within. All right. Let me stack up all of these cards, and let's get into some of the questions that you submitted earlier to me. And we'll take it one by one, and we'll see if we have any time left at the end for meditation or for something else. Today's very fluid, very flexible, so we'll just see where it takes me. Kind of fun to sometimes just have a different organization because I can be so regimented on the order in which I do things. So today is not one of those days. All right. So again, these questions were previously submitted. I may pull some cards as I look at some of them. I may have time for something at the end. We'll just see. All right. So for those, again, a lot of you that are members and Patreon supporters submitted the questions. I'm going to try to pick ones that I think will benefit everyone and kind of demystify things. And I might even answer some that you didn't ask me because I get asked them all the time. I'm going to start with one that didn't make it in here, but I swear it comes and my moderators have to deal with it at least 2 or 3 times a month, so I'll answer it. My sun sign is Libra. I have an ascendant in Capricorn, a rising, and then my moon is Taurus, and Virgo is Venus. I have to look at my own chart for the rest because I don't have it all memorized, but those are the main ones that I kind of look into if I want to see things. And this helps me with the next question, which is asking a little bit about what's the difference between sun, moon, and rising, and how should you look or watch those different sort of signs and those different videos. So your sun sign is you. If you don't know what else to do, that's your birthday. So you can just look at your birth date and the sign that's associated with it. And most of the time that's going to resonate because that's your core identity, if you will. However, the other aspects can show you different sides of your personality because just like a crystal, we have different facets. If you can see as I start to turn the crystal, from here it just looks solid. But as you get a little closer and you can see the facets, then, there's more than meets the eye. So what the moon sign shows you is your inner self, the side that you don't always show to everyone else, not even in relationships. It can be your inner fears, your inner desires. Venus is going to show a lot more with relationships, but your moon is going to be stuff that you're working on, but maybe you don't want people to see. Desires come through there sometimes too. Rising shows how you project yourself to the world, business. So you should look at your rising or ascendant for work, for external relationships, for how people are viewing you, for how you can work at being more powerful. The sun is just your basic what's going on in my life. And the moon are what do I need to be working on? What am I feeling? That stuff can overflow in so many different places. So all three are very good to look at. Venus, I also like to look at as well. But look at your chart. There's so many exciting different pieces. The way that I do my videos is if you know that aspect, you can watch it and then just sort of look at it from that perspective. Okay. So that was someone who goes by the moniker I am, and that's the answer to your question. Okay, Ms. Moses. Let's see. You said what? And I actually got 2 that were very similar here. So Miss Moses and Misty Creates asked me questions that had a connection. Miss Moses, you said, what really pushed you to move forward in reading and developing your skills? Specifically, you asked, what was your final push? Such a great question. To just go for it. And I have an answer for that. And then Misty Creates asked, what were the drivers that led you to your path for self-employment? These are all very much connected. So I'm going to answer 2 at once. Okay. So as many of you know, I was working, I'd spent about 15 years in a corporate path, had many different jobs. I spent a lot of time at 2 of them, but I did freelancing like for the first 5 years of my career. And then I spent most of it at 2. But the inciting incident, the thing that kind of made me feel like I needed to move, before I even did that, I felt it internally. I thought, the thrill is gone, right? You're doing something and you just don't feel as connected to it. So I was already emotionally feeling like I think I've done everything that I wanted to when I set out like on this career path when I went to college. It wasn't all that I hoped, and I wanted to do something different. So there was that disillusionment and this realization that there's more. But the big incident was a death of a family member because as they passed and after they passed, I had a realization of how finite our lives are and how we can't take for granted time. When that person was passing, they basically said, where did the past 3 or 4 decades go? Because they spent a lot of time working. And by the time they retired, this is my father, by the way, by the time he retired, he just didn't have any health left because he didn't take good care of himself. So maybe there were a few years that he enjoyed, and then he was just in declining health. Lots of things went wrong. Yeah, he passed away. But for me, it wasn't so much the death, it was the realization that he died with regrets. And I didn't want to die with regrets. And so for me now, I take new opportunities with a new balance. And I look at, if this was my last day and I didn't do this, would I be up in my soul review thinking I should have done it? And when that happened, I thought, I can't do what I'm doing anymore because I don't want to be here. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to try this. So that helped me create a new balance in my life. And one of the things that I wanted to do was write a book. The other thing that I wanted to do was to explore this intuitive path. And they both melted together. This YouTube experience was something that I was called to, but I didn't ever imagine doing. In fact, initially when I started to do it, I didn't show my face, and then I did, and I didn't have my last name initially. And then I thought, if you're going to do this, do this. Kind of like that Yoda piece. If you don't just try it, don't just kind of tiptoe around it. Show your face, use your name, put yourself behind what you do. And once that happened, everything took off. And so for me, it was just admitting that I wanted something different, doing the work to make it happen, and then not overthinking it. And being flexible to change. That's one of the things that I've continued to do. But my final push was that there had to be more, and there was, and there is, and I'm glad I did it. Okay? Hope that answers your question. It wasn't easy, by the way. It took me a couple of years I already was intending to quit before the death of my father, but he made me do it, and he made me realize, you've saved enough money. You can start a business. You'll figure it out. And then I went with that affirmative thought. I will do this and I will figure it out. And I did. So I didn't have everything planned out initially, but I knew that's when I started to really trust the third eye. I'm like, I'll manifest it. I'll figure it out. Okay. There you go. Let's go on to the next one. So those were two great questions from Miss Moses and Missy Creates, and also from I Am. All right. Jeannie Hart asked me some questions about deepening her knowledge of tarot and sort of like the attunement to that. You know what? I didn't read a ton of books, and there's a lot of these questions, and I'll answer them differently as I kind of stumble upon them here. But I studied with a teacher and did that for about 3 months. And then the rest of my journey was never putting the cards down. And I listened to a lot of other readers at the beginning just to sort of see how they interpreted stuff. I think you can gain a lot of knowledge from listening to a different interpretation of a card, because tarot is like poetry or like literature. And I was an English minor, a journalism major, and then I did like film for grad school. But so I like looking at things. I like the story, and I like looking at the different pieces of a story. So just the same way that we would look at symbolism in like Shakespeare or Edgar Allan Poe, we can look at symbols that they use and take it apart, but there's different ways, and two different people can read the same symbol differently. Or if you listen to a song and the lyrics are sort of abstract, you can have two very different interpretations of it. So tarot is the same way. And what I would advise you to do is to pick it up every day. So, I've been working with the cards probably for about a decade, but what I can say without exaggeration that almost every day, because of what I do here, because I also see some clients, because I use the cards also just for a daily read for myself. I don't do a lot. I'll just pull a couple cards. I don't feel the need to do 10 cards for myself. I'll just have a question and I can get a lot from one card. So pull a card a day. And it doesn't matter if you do it at the beginning or the end. If you do it at the end, you could say, what should I have learned today? Or what should I prepare for tomorrow? If you do it at the beginning of the day, say, help me be aware of something, or you can set an intention. Write it down or take a picture on your phone or keep a diary and see how these symbols connect to you, because your 10 of swords may be different from someone else's or from mine. And so you'll start to develop a relationship with the cards. All right. So practice is how it gets into your energy. And after 5, 7, or 10 years, it becomes part of just who you are. Okay. Hopefully that helps. All right. This was a really good question from Andy. Andy asked me, what inspired you to start reading? And do you feel like your clairvoyant and intuitive skills were genetic? It's a yes, but not just that. So yes, my mom and my dad both had intuitive gifts, and my father's side specifically has a lot of intuitives, but nobody that kind of like does it professionally. But they were natural intuitives. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, she would get a kick out of this if she was alive, but she'd be very old at this point, like 120 or something. But anyway, she had a lot of dream interpretation, and I remember she would always be talking about that. She didn't go the next level of like interpreting it, but she had very clairvoyant dreams. And a lot of the women on that side of the family have intuitive gifts. My dad had it though too, and it was so funny. Only once I started doing what I'm doing did he feel comfortable saying. He shared an experience with me where one time he was at a bar or a restaurant and he was talking to someone, and then after that person left, the bartender came over and said, "Who are you talking to?" No one was there, and so he had actually had a spirit interaction in a public place, and I thought that was a really cool story. He was basically telling me it's cool what you're doing, and I've had an experience, but he turned it off because it made him afraid. So a lot of people in my family have turned it off. A lot of people that I know don't want to talk to me about it. I have friends that I've known for years that I think they're scared of psychic phenomenon. So what I try to do is be very normal and grounded about it. But I have really close friends actually that talk nothing about what I do because I think that they know that I can see things and that scares them. So never be afraid. But so yes, there is genes, and my mom she also has intuitive skills. She can kind of go above things and see things. And she has a very good nonsense filter. She knows if someone's giving her a bunch of baloney. So she'll go beyond it and she can kind of get right to what the point is. So the cool thing with her and I is that there's really no secrets. So maybe some people that would freak them out, but I live a very sort of clear life now. So there's nothing to hide. So that's cool. So yes, there is a genetic piece, but as I started to wake up, one thing that I saw about 10 years ago, so my intuitive awakening was like 2008, 2009. I started to just have a bunch of stuff open up. And when you first awaken, maybe some of you that have had this happen, I got a lot of flashbacks. So I was shown that this is normal for you. You just didn't do it for a while this lifetime. You had to have some normal experiences first, and then we were going to give it to you in the middle of the journey. Because I saw myself as like I had a flashback to Etruria, where I was an astrologer, to Egypt, where I was like a high priest. I've been a monk, I've been a nun, I've been a witch, I've been everything. Every sort of walk of spiritual life, a druid, all of that stuff. It's just spirit in different languages. So once I saw all of the spiritual paths that I had taken, and I also have read cards, and I saw myself like with a Marseille deck, so probably in Paris or something. So I've done this many, many times before. So it was just kind of like coming home. And the cards were haunting me a little bit in real life. I would walk on the street and see playing cards on the street. I talked about this before, but I'll say it here again. Like one time I was in a fitting room and I saw the Hierophant on the bench there. And so it's sort of like everywhere I was going, the cards were around me. And I finally just said, fine, I'll do it. And I picked up a deck and started to read. So that's kind of how I was inspired to do it. And I wanted to learn. So with the awakening that I was experiencing in my life, I wanted more. I wanted to feel like I understood, because if you don't know what's going on, it can be scary. So at the same time, I studied yoga. I'm a certified teacher, but I don't teach. I do put meditation and sound baths at the end of all my videos, and that's a holdover from my yogi past. But the reason that I practiced yoga and learned to teach was so that I could have a foundation. I knew how to protect myself. I knew how to connect to source. And then the reason that I learned cards was so that I wasn't afraid of esoteric stuff. So that when I look at it now, I just see light and I see opportunities and I see empowerment. You can bring to magic or intuition or clairvoyance or the occult anything that you want. I just see it as empowerment. So that's my sort of answer to that. Long-winded, but hopefully that helps. All right. Priyanka has a question for me here. She said, as an empath, how can one protect themselves from negative energy or low frequencies? That's a great question. I think that, and some of you asked also how I kind of do what I'm doing without feeling an energetic kind of effect? The answer is there's always going to be an energetic cost. When I do readings like this, I'm exhausted later in the day. So I usually have to take a nap, a 1 or 2 hour nap when I do collectives in the afternoon to recharge. So because I get up very early. Fun fact, I'm usually up around 5:30 or 6 a.m. on the dates that I do this, because I have to do the research plus eat breakfast, walk my dog, kind of get everything together. So it's a very early day, and I usually take a little nap in the middle of the day, and then I have to do the recaps and all that other stuff in the afternoon. So there is an energetic cost. So if you do psychic or intuitive work, you have to plan that in there. Now, for day-to-day stuff, if you're empathic, I think the most important thing for you to do is raise your frequency. So meditation, yoga, these are two great things, especially if you're like, I don't like to meditate. Well, do yoga. Yoga includes meditation throughout. And that Shavasana portion is the most important thing. All the exercises and all the work that you're doing is leading you to Shavasana. That 3 or 4 minutes, it's nicer if you can make it 10 if you're doing your own, where you're just laying still and letting all of the work kind of settle in. So you can do yoga, you can take a walk, like we were seeing that full card, that's meditation. You can write, you can sing, you can create art. There are different ways to channel. But if you start to experience more joy and a higher frequency, the nonsense doesn't get in as much as it used to. When I first awakened, I wasn't sort of in that highest frequency because I was in a toxic work environment. There was a lot of stuff going on in the family. There was just a lot going on. And emotionally and physically, I wasn't where I needed to be. So I was feeling way too much. So I had to start to work on getting healthier and meditating more. And then that doesn't affect you as much. Shielding is the short and simple answer, but shielding in and of itself won't be enough if your own frequency isn't high enough. So meditate, work on yourself, bring that frequency to a higher point, and then you're going to be in a better place. I'll pull a card for this one too and see if there's some additional insight from the guides, but that's my practical experience and advice on that one. Yeah, the other thing here for you is to not be afraid, I would say, to take the steps necessary to make something happen. So ask for help, ask for advice. That was something that I did too. I worked with a lot of spiritual teachers who I knew that I could trust and kind of put me in the right direction. So that was a time where I would join meditation groups. I got some readings myself too, to just sort of get past my own blocks, because we often are blind to our own biggest sort of issues. So I think all of those things are key. Okay. All right. This was a great one from Jody Solorio. She said, I wanted to know and understand the intentions, prayers, and hopes that you set prior to our readings. I do pray before I start. The reason I don't put it at the beginning is I don't want to make the readings feel too religious or put anyone off. And people are already impatient and probably think that I'm long-winded. So I like to get started. But before I begin, each and every one of the candles, so we have 4, 5, 6. Actually, that one has like 2 in it, so it's like 7. I like 7. It's a good number. So I usually will say a prayer with each of those candles. I normally connect to a minimum of 3 archangels, sometimes 4. So I work a lot with Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. Gabriel is great for communication. Michael is great for protection. Those are 2 that you're going to see in a lot of religious texts. So you're going to be in a good place if you work with either of those. So I will say a prayer and intention to each of those. Gabriel, I try to open up to the highest messages from the highest good. Michael, I ask for protection for everyone present. So I do things like that. I also connect to the source, to my definition of God, and ask just to be present. And I give gratitude for being able to be here. So yeah, make it your own prayer. I'm not going to give you all of mine. I would say it's important to set protection and intention though. Intention to connect to the highest light and the highest good. And a lot of people are always afraid about opening up. As long as you do that, you're going to be okay, because you've said, I'm ready to connect to my highest source, to God, to archangels, etc. It's sort of like you've closed the other channels off. And if it's not that high frequency, it won't come through. If you're going to read for someone, use light in the meditation. I usually will see like a spotlight or a starlight, sunlight, moonlight, all of them work. Or yeah, try and use sort of like a stellar source, and then just tell the person, walk them through in a meditation, and then in your own mind, see a light around them, a light around you, and imagine that you can work around it or kind of move into the energy a little bit, but you're not going to go into their energy. They're contained, you're contained. And that's going to be really good if you're an empath and you want to protect yourself, and also just in general. Okay, cool. So that was a great question, I think. Let's see, Regina, you wanted to know, how do you learn to read tarot and oracle cards? And you asked specifically about like what I can do to kind of look at how to take a negative card or a challenging card and make it not so challenging experience on that. I would say for me, just reading it over and over and over, you could name me any card and I know what it looks like in my head because I've done this for so long. I think that I'm going to answer a question ahead of time here. I remembered this being asked, and I'll say your name later if I see it. But if you want to know like a really good starters deck, I like this one so much that I have a travel version of it and I don't have the other version handy. So I'm going to show you this one. So the Radiant Rider-Waite, you can go to my website and it'll be there. This is a really good deck to begin with because it's the traditional Rider-Waite Smith deck, but the colors on it are a lot brighter and a lot easier to deal with for someone who's brand new. So this is a great deck to begin with. And what I would say is every day, pull a card, learn a little bit more from it. We got the Hermit, which we talked about in the Totem today. So yeah, I really like this. And this is small enough that you could put it in your work bag or your travel bag or by your nightstand. And each day you could pull a single card and see what's coming through. And it's going to give you what we see there, the King of Pentacles, the ability to really grow. And yeah, this is my favorite by far for a new reader. And if I had to just take one deck, I use a lot of fancy decks, but probably this. Now, if you really want to go to the source, you can also do Rider-Waite. And I have like a universal deck is not bad. There's a couple of different Rider-Waite derivatives. I tend not to use just the Rider-Waite. I like some of the ones where they've done a better job of like colorizing them or just kind of modernizing them a bit. So the universal one is nice. It kind of has this softer energy to it. I don't use it much for reading, but it's a nice one too. So the Radiant and the Universal both get a check mark for me. I like them. And the reason I don't use the traditional one is it feels like it's kind of, it wasn't made for bigger mediums. So I do have this jumbo version. So I do have one traditional Rider-Waite one. But one thing that I found with this is that the cards are very kind of like the colors can just kind of be in your face and there's not a lot of detail to the images. And some of the ones that have been updated have better details. But you should learn, everybody should have a Rider-Waite deck at home and you should learn from this, but you could use one of the derivatives, the Universal or the Radiant, and it's very close. In fact, it might be nicer and more fun to deal with. So you should start with this. This is what everything else is based on, unless you decide to read the Thoth path, which is different. I can read Thoth, but I don't know it as well. And I don't connect as much with all of his imagery. But it helps to learn Thoth too, because that will help you interpret some of the other, like the Sun and Moon deck has certain things from the Thoth. So I would say pick up both, but Rider-Waite is my fave, and that's pretty much what I read with. And practicing is the key thing. So after several years, I would say it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're developing speech. When you're 1 or 2, you don't talk very well. Once you get to 3 to 5, you've got that language a little bit better. By the time you hit 7 or 10, you're fluent. Tarot kind of is a similar journey. You start with basic skills, basic knowledge, and then it gets better and better with each year. So it's almost like a little toddler moving into, by the time I would say like by 3rd grade. So yeah, by the time you're like 5, 7, 8, you're there. So give yourself time. It gets better as you start to practice. Okay. The mathematics of tarot was a cool way of looking at it. You're talking about wands. It's something that I figured out on my own. Wands is something that you can go up and down and you're not really going to lose much. It's a very successful suit overall, not as tricky as some of them. So getting to know the elements taught me a lot too. Swords is it's the hardest one to learn, and there's a lot to unpack with swords. It took me a long time to know the difference between like 5 and 7 of swords and things like that, but you'll get there. But practice and life experience. That's my answer, my short answer. And I like to work with a lot of decks. That's also increased my vocabulary, if you will, because the different interpretations, like here, if we look at this Ace of Wands card, get a lot more out of this than a traditional hand holding a wand, right? This is showing the ideation that comes through the Ace of Wands. don't be afraid. This is the Light Seers deck. It's a great deck. Don't be afraid to take a look at a different interpretation, because it could help you understand it a little bit more. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Another person was asking about empath and empathy, I should say. They feel others' pain. This is a really cool skill to have. It doesn't feel cool to go through it, but they wanted to know, like, what does it mean? So I'll talk a little bit about my empathy and how I figured it out. You're going to have to interpret it yourself, though I will say certain parts of your body do align to things that are going on. So I have certain family members or close friends where if they're going through a really difficult time and they're thinking of me, it'll feel like there are ants on my scalp. So like I have a healthy scalp, no problems, but like all of a sudden in that moment, like from nowhere, I'll feel like I want to scratch my scalp. I can kind of identify one or two people that usually it's coming from. And so I'll reach out to them and see what's going on when that happens. It's because their thoughts are agitated and their seventh chakra is pushing out agitation. And because I'm pretty receptive and because they're in my life to a point that I'm kind of, there are cords there, I feel it. So I could just disconnect some of the cords, I can clear it, or I could send some love and light, or just take a deep breath. Because a lot of times all I have to do is think, oh, it's not me. Okay. And then I can decide to deal with it or not, because sometimes it can be codependent if you are always reacting to that trigger. So I'm like, they'll call me if they need me. I know what it is. I've had someone that was sending me negative text before, and I could feel needles in my fingers as they were tapping it in their phone or their typewriter or whatever they were doing. I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. And with something like that, I just chose to not react immediately either. I could feel the anger, and I thought they're not in a place where I'm not gonna talk to them right now. So where it comes through and then what kind of interaction happens afterwards, you're gonna have to learn to decode it. Those are a couple of examples. Solar plexus comes up for me all the time in readings. I'm not having any issues, but like if I read for you and all of a sudden it feels like there's a dagger or a pain there, then I realize, okay, that's something that we're gonna need to deal with, okay? So those are some examples. Now, those are the difficult things. There's also beautiful things. So if you have like an aunt, a mother, or someone in your life that cares about you in that sort of like nurturing way, and they, they're thinking of you and then pick up the phone or something, you might get this rush of like warm energy because it's heartfelt, unconditional love. That can be nice, actually, quite nice. I've also had that feeling if someone is trying to flirt with you or checking you out, if you're walking out in public and you kind of know that it's all of a sudden you just get this sort of, what's that? You can tell that there's a positive energy, whether or not it's welcome, that's something you'll have to deal with. But love, interest, positive sort of stuff comes through in a very nice way. And it can hit you in different areas. It can come through in the heart space. It can just be this warm energy that washes over you. You might even just feel your temperature rise a little bit. So there's some nice things too, but empathy is going to hit body parts differently. If you really develop your intuition, you'll have to make sure you shield yourself, but sometimes you can pick up on where it's at. Like if you read for someone, you could feel maybe tightness in the lungs, you could feel pain in the leg. You can actually get phantom pains for other people. So it's just a different way of reading. You just want to make sure that you can identify it's not me, and you decide how much of that you want to interpret and turn the receptors off if you need to. It's a very advanced form of reading, but it is out there. And the more you kind of develop your skills, the more that will probably come through. All right. Toya asked me a question about, is it okay to pull a daily card for guidance? I talked about it. Absolutely. I'm going to say something here, though, and all readers out there are probably going to laugh. If you get the Tower, the 10 of Swords, don't pull another card necessarily, unless you want a clarification. But don't keep pulling until you get the answer that you want to pull. So let's say there's a difficult situation. We'll see if the cards cooperate, but if not, let's see if there was something difficult that you don't want to see or do, and a difficult card comes up. All right, this will work. Judgment reversed. It's basically on this one, maybe you didn't want to see that. This is saying, you know what to do, listen to yourself. You wouldn't keep pulling cards until you get the answer that you want. Sometimes that quote unquote negative or triggering card has all the answers that you need. Get to really know all the meanings of that So if you got Tower, 10 of Swords, Death, Judgment, something that's big and kind of impactful, 7 of Swords, 5 of Swords, any of those, think, all right, why did this come up and how can I fix it so tomorrow's card looks a little better? Always take that card and interpret it. All right. I know every reader out there has done that. You're like, maybe I didn't shuffle it enough. Let me shuffle it again. One thing that I'll do, it's the reason that I work with a lot of decks and my guides will laugh at me. If I do that and I pull in another one, I just get the same card. So, or a very similar interpretation. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll listen to it. All right. Multiple pulls, you'll actually lose the point if you keep doing that again and again. So yes, pull a card. Don't be afraid by it. Just pay attention to it. And if it didn't come up, then it could also be about a fear. 10 of Swords can be fear of failure. It's not going to say, it doesn't mean that you're going to have something wrong in your body or that someone's going to hurt you. You could be worrying about the worst case scenario. So really look at the different levels of that and see where it leads. All right. Let's look at the next one here that I was looking at. All right. This is a good question from Candace. What intuitive messages could you give us to assist us in navigating the intense energies and events occurring all over the planet at this time? I think the way that I read is about the way that you can look at card reading and just sort of development is how can I empower myself? How can I better myself? And that's kind of how I look at all of your readings too. Why just focus on, uh-oh, you're in trouble. It's sort of what like Whoopi Goldberg was saying she didn't want to say, but she said anyway in Ghosts, like, Molly, you in trouble, girl. You don't want to say that. You want to say, Molly, there are some challenges, but I'm going to tell you what to look for. This is what you can do. I've got you on this. We're going to figure it out together. So I always try to look at why you're in trouble, not just highlighting that you're in trouble, you know? So it is just about finding your balance. I think that's the main thing when it comes to daily read and just sort of messages in general too. How can I find more balance in my life? How can I find more than enough? How can I make a difference? So empowering yourself and empowering others would be the short answer to that. Someone wanted to know how to be more in tune to their body. I feel like I answered that. Exercise is key, and of course, meditation. And I think that if it feels right, or like notice how it is when you eat certain foods or drink certain things, and if you don't like how that feels, then change it. Your body is a really good interpreter of what works for you and what doesn't. Like I can't process dairy. That doesn't work for me. I don't like meat. That doesn't work for me. I'm a vegetarian. I used to be strict vegan, but now I'm vegetarian. So there's a little bit of things that I'll let in, a little bit of fish, a little bit of eggs, but mostly I would say 90% of the time it's vegetarian. That's helped quite a bit because it's a cleaner sort of energy. And when you, sometimes for me, when I'm eating when I didn't, it's been a long time ago, like when I ate meat, it just felt heavy and I felt heavy. I don't drink. Someone asked about things that I got rid of in my life. So when the intuitive awakening came, I stopped drinking alcohol. I have no problems consuming or processing it, but I didn't like the way that it made me feel, and it lowered my frequency. So I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I eat mostly vegetable diet with a little bit, like I said, egg and fish, but very small amounts of that. And that's kind of given me a very clean energy to work with. So focus on what feels right in your body, okay? I think that will help. Patrice asked a question about mentorship. I do think that it can be good to have a coach or a teacher. I think that you also will come to a point where you will probably have what you need, and then you can start to just go down your own path, kind of like we saw with the moon card. So yeah, if you're at the beginning, particularly if you're a little bit nervous or if you're not sure how to do something, I would say work with a few teachers, just like we do when we're in primary, secondary, college. You're not learning from just one. So I would say that's the maybe place where I kind of deviate a bit. I don't think you have to have just one guru or just one teacher. Teachers, plural. Look out there. Get all the best of the best and absorb that. And I think that'll be key. Okay. And you said you felt positive when you relied on your intuition. Or you thought that it had a lot to do with success. I agree. And I think a lot of times when we're not listening to that intuitive self, that's when things start to kind of like go into an opposite direction. Okay. Charlie, you're the one that asked me about what deck to gift to was it your son? I think, yeah. You said, yeah, 16-year-old son who was going to be 17 that wanted to start. So that's one. I'm going to show you some of my favorites right now. Just a little bit of show and tell here. So I just showed you the Radiant deck, and it's very affordable. I want to say this is probably one of the cheapest ones on Amazon. You can get any derivation of Rider-Waite-Smith, but the Radiant one is great. The other deck, the regular size isn't handy, but you don't have to get this one. I actually kind of like the little tin because you can take it anywhere you go. So that's one that I love. I showed you the Lightseers deck here. Even the darker cards on this one are kind of cool. I wouldn't start with this one first though, because you kind of like, this is a very elevated 10 of Swords, but you probably need to learn the regular energy around some of these first, but this might be something for a year or two from now to gift. I like it, but I do think that this is more of an intermediate deck. If you're looking for a deck that's a slightly more inclusive deck, showing like different kinds of people, I really like the Modern Witch deck. This one's very close to Rider-Waite-Smith, a little more colorful, and yeah, I just like that it has a more diverse cast of people on it as well. Everybody's represented for the most part here. And I also like that the king cards are kind of like gender neutral, which is cool because I don't really read gender in these either. So this is a fun one. But again, I would start with the Radiant one, and then this is one that you can move to because there are a few derivations on this. I just read with one of my favorites today, which is the Afro Goddess one. The person that illustrated it, every picture is like a painting on this one. It's really one of the most beautiful decks that, and I think you could start with this one too, because the pictures are really fun. So I like all of those. One other one that I'll highlight, these are just ones that are near me and easy to reference. This is the True Heart Intuitive. Rachel True, I believe, created this one. Some really cool illustrations and interpretations. Don't love the card stock. It could be a little bit stronger, but I love the illustrations. And it's held up for me. I'm not a crazy shuffler. I have kind of like my own way. So all of these decks you want to shuffle with care. I treat these like they're gold because a lot of them are more expensive and I want them to last. But I've been using this a few months and it's held up. So a little lighter cardstock on this one than the other ones that I reference, but it's one of my favorites. So if I have to, I just rebuy decks if they get old and I don't worry about it. So those are some of my favorites. I have a bunch though. I actually really love ones that are way out there. Like this is a Divine, I think, Tarot of the Divine or whatever. And it's all about fairy tales and kind of like retellings of that. So those are some of my favorites. I could go on and on. I have too many decks, but these are the ones that are closest to me. And that usually indicates that I like to use them a lot. One last one, and then we're going to go to the next one. And these are all on my website, by the way. Maria can put a link to my website. This was the second deck that I purchased. This is Robin Wood, not Robin Hood, but Robin Wood Intuitive. It has some Celtic symbols on it. It's very nice, very close to Rider-Waite-Smith. Beautiful ace cards. I really like the colors. This Magician kind of sold me on it too. I really like this sort of like druid energy that you see in this one. So this was deck number 2, and the Radiant Rider-Waite one was deck number 1. So I think both of these are good. I actually learned with this one and it was just fine. So either of those are fine. Really nice energy in it. Okay. One thing that I've started to do lately though is I like to find decks that I have a complaint that there's like a lack of diversity in some of these older decks. So I just like to see like different energy. And so now I'm looking for decks that are just more colorful and have a different approach. So one other one that's really cool, but this one is advanced, is the Sun and Moon deck. Smaller, easier to shuffle, really cool images on it. You're going to see though a combination of Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth in this one. So you might want to learn Thoth a little bit, but really cool imagery in this one. All right, those are like my top 7 or whatever that I went through. Okay, and then thank you, Maria, for putting that link out there. Everything but the latest one, I was using one the other day, is up there. I'll update it this weekend. One of these days I'll do my Oracle one, but I almost have, I don't know, I have a lot. I have too many to count. I have a lot of Oracle ones, so I might just put a list instead of, it takes time to put the images and put the links and all of that, which is why I don't list all the Oracle ones. Okay. By the way, you seem like a cool parent for letting your kid have a deck of cards. He'll have a good time with that. All right. Erica Mackey had a question. You said this one. This was really interesting because I think you might have missed something on it. You said when releasing situations to the universe and relying on destiny through meditation, could it be harmful? Don't rely on destiny. You create your own destiny. I think we have certain things that we've set into motion, but you're always in charge. You are not beholden to some sort of will of the universe. You have free will each and every day. So, Erica, I would say what you would want to do is release some of the fear. And releasing fear or pain is not bad. There's different kinds of offerings. You can say to God in the universe, thanks for the lessons that I learned through this difficult path. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for or what I wished, but I learned a lot. And then say, I'm ready for something higher. I'm ready for something brighter at this point. And that kind of an offering and a release is good. You're saying, this lesson's done. Let's get a different one and let's make it a little less difficult for myself. And then you create your own destiny. There's sometimes a path or a trajectory that you're on, but you have a lot of influence on that path. You can even recreate, you can completely steer the Titanic in another direction and avoid the iceberg if you need to. So don't worry about that. Like, change is always possible. So you make your own destiny. I highlighted that question. So there's nothing dangerous except to think that you don't have control or to give your control to someone else. Mad Monica, I think I answered your question about shielding. But let's see. Let's see. How do you manage to protect yourself? How can you help a person in pain? One of my pieces of advice for helping someone in pain is you can only help them if they're at a point that they're ready to receive that assistance, because otherwise you can sometimes get this sort of like, they'll be pushing back at you a little bit, right? I think that's key. Okay. But yeah, to shield yourself, you can practice some of what I was talking about earlier, which is you don't have to accept other people's like verbal abuse or too much of their pain. At some points you decide, like, let them come to you. The Queen of Wands, I forgot to say that, and the King of Wands that came up a little bit earlier, they can be really strong if they set themselves up as a leader and then allow people to come when and if they're ready, but not before that. So put yourself out there as a support, let people know that there's help, but you can't force the person. And then working on shielding yourself, you can just imagine that you are surrounded by I don't like a bubble because bubbles can be popped, so I've never worked with that. I like to imagine that there's a starlight, a star or sun or moon that's shining on me, and that light is following me like an actor has a light on the stage. So whatever you're doing, that's following you all day. Just imagine that you're in the spotlight and that's connected to the divine, and that nothing can pierce those light particles except other light particles. So shadows can't come in the light. They're going to actually, light's very effective at that. So if you're around a darker person, shine your light, go brighter, increase your intensity, and they'll either brighten up or they'll retreat. I found that even when I was in a conversation once with someone who was really negative, in my head, my guides told me to say the mantra, and I said, see my light. And I shined brightly, and they were distracted and they got out of my presence pretty quickly because they weren't comfortable. They knew that I could see through the manipulation that they were trying to do. So it works, especially if you're working with another intuitive. Even if you're not, it will work. Okay. Shields can be words and thoughts. They all start as that as well. Okay. Mary Anita sent me a really long note, but I underlined one passage here, and she wanted to know how I was capable of clearing my mind of mundane stress before I tapped into source. So I guess it would be the same that you would ask of a musician or an entertainer or a doctor or anyone that has to show up and do a job. When I am ready to be here for you, that all goes away. When I read, a large part of me is kind of like here, and it's the higher self. I'm using my throat, I'm using my brain to process stuff, but I'm not very present, actually. It's higher self coming through. So it's kind of cool, actually. I think musicians do this too. When you're on stage and you're singing, you're out of body. So I kind of go out of body a bit, and afterwards, it takes me a while to come back in. And that's why sometimes I have to take, walking the dog is really good. So Apollo helps me in those moments, and drinking and eating something afterwards is really important. But beforehand, I just take a deep breath and think, I got work to do. And I don't have time for this because I'm human like you. I can have someone that's in an argument with me the night before, the morning of, and I have to think, no, I don't have time for this. I changed the channel. So I guess it's just a lot of practice and then being able to slip into that channeled energy, because it's not just all, it's my higher self, it's my guides. There's a lot of intuitive energy that comes through. And if you're a public speaker or performer, then all of a sudden a part of you kind of, the fear and the doubt and the day-to-day part of you goes into the background. I'm in the audience and higher self is here. So you're talking to a different part of me, or a different part of me is talking to you when I'm here. So through practice though, it kind of gets easier, I would say. Lydia had an interesting question. You wanted to know about curses. I believe that we make our own blessings and blocks. Let's not use the word curse. Let's use like block or fear, because it's really what is behind it. That kind of energy works best when fear, ignorance, and intimidation is a part of it. So I believe that when you rise above the fear, the intimidation, and the ignorance that is oftentimes associated with those darker energies, then that doesn't work. That word doesn't work as much. There's a great line in Practical Magic, one of my favorite movies, where the love interest for one of the two sisters says, because she had the sisters have this family curse, and he says, I don't believe in, curses only work if you believe in them, and I don't. And he believes in her. And that was kind of a better way to look at things. So if you believe that negativity will happen, you're giving your power to the negativity. So don't believe in it. Focus on your own empowerment. That's not to say that energy isn't coming towards you. It's just saying that if you raise your frequency to a good point, it's going to be less effective. You're going to be focusing on other things. That moves on eventually. Dissolve it, neutralize it, focus on what you can control. Okay? I guess that's what I would say about that. Watch Practical Magic. You'll have a good time. And it's got a good message at the end. Okay, let's take a look. I think it might even be on Netflix. But if not, you can find it somewhere on streaming. Let's see. Debs, you said, collective awareness. How can we support humanity? Well, you just said it. You can do seva. You can do service. You can give back. So maybe that is through volunteer work. Maybe that's through you having a YouTube channel, or maybe that's through you talking and listening to people. Do something that helps the world, that makes you feel good. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm showing up here for all of you to do that as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make an impact. Just make one. There's too many people that aren't doing something that's a service. So if you can make a difference, make a difference. Angelic Unity. Let's see. How do we best deal with the apparent instability of the world? The larger world, if you're an empath, I talked about this. The cleansing piece, though, is good. You asked if I had a daily cleansing or grounding or dismantling of cords. Sure, I do. And maybe if we have time today, we'll do that at the very end here, just a quick meditation. But the most important thing that you can do is smudge. I use a lot of different types of, I would say, both substances and instruments for smudging. So I use sage. I have incense, frankincense. Those are the main ones that I will use on a daily basis. Palo Santo is great, of course. And sound energy works too. So you can just play a singing bowl, or the crystal pyramid, which I have as well. So either of those will work, or even just like anything, any sort of instrument can kind of help clear the energy out as well. But for decording or dismantling the cords, what I basically do is a meditation where you can imagine like light kind of melting the cords. You can push light through them so that it just disintegrates them. You can pull them out if you want to. You can ask Archangel Michael to help with that. There's a lot of different meditations. I've done some before on my channel, so you can look at that. But yes, just tune into some of my collectives, and I'll probably do a cord cutting meditation. And I know I have done it in the past too. But smudging and meditation are key to just daily clearing and cleansing. I think you can also do an Epsom salt bath if you want to. Not everyone likes to take a bath or has a bath, but if you can, that helps as well. With an Epsom salt bath, you're probably going to have to take a shower or do a quick bath afterwards, because the salt could dry out your skin. Just a little tip. All right. Let's look at the next couple of questions here and then we'll wrap up because we're almost at time, but I still have room for some more, and I have some from Patreon that I want to answer. Advice for learning what my specific language with spirit is. I talked a lot about that earlier. First of all, love is the eternal language with spirit. So if it comes from a place of love, if you're doing it with passion, you're going to be connecting to something that makes sense. But I would say the bigger answer to that is, look at how I'm doing this. I can actually find symbols in nature, like the sea urchin or a butterfly or a praying mantis. I look at everything in the world around us has a symbol to it. You can kind of just have fun with decoding it. So if you don't like the 78 symbols here, then make your own. There was a movie, can't remember the name, but I think Cate Blanchett was in it, where they just showed a bunch of cards and she had like X's and O's and squares and different things on it. That's not too different than, like, again, what we were talking about when Rider-Waite and Smith were developing this, where they just came up with illustrations and decided how they were going to decode it. So you can make your own symbols. True intuitives can work just without them. If you've ever listened to a psychic medium, they'll say certain things like, oh, spirit showed me this, which means this. You must be going through this. So they can have different symbols than the cards, and it means something different. So start to keep a diary, or just keep a mental log, because it's going to be important for you to memorize this at some point. And just remember that, oh, when I see a butterfly, that means change. When I see a ladybug, that means that something's going to work out better than I thought. When I see a praying mantis, it means that I better be on guard. Someone might be trying to kind of come in or whatever. Like, you'll figure out whatever it is for you. So have fun with that. Create your own language. There's a Tracy Chapman song on New Beginnings where she's like, we need to throw out the old symbols, make a new language, start a new beginning. So I think you could do whatever you want. It's your language, your symbols. Just start to keep a book and a diary of that, and I think that will help you. I answered the question of lifestyle changes. No drinking, no drugs, exercise is good. Basically raise your frequency. And yeah, I don't. The most that I would ever have is maybe something in like kombucha or something like that, but very rarely. I don't drink any beer or alcohol, or I haven't since 2009. If I did, it would be like a one-time occasion. I don't keep that kind of stuff in the house because it just doesn't help me. So limit it. Like, that's not saying that you couldn't have a New Year's toast or something like that, but I don't drink. It doesn't help me. Okay. Let's look at the last few questions here from my Patreon supporters. You wanted to know advice for meditation. For this one, I wrote that short is fine. Like, I'd rather you do less, but do it more than try to think that you have to set aside half an hour or an hour or something ridiculous for meditation. I would rather have someone meditate for 5 to 10 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes every day, because you're going to get in the habit and you're going to start to open up the channel more. So do a little bit every day. And then when you have a chance, do a little bit more. And at the very least, set aside one day. Let's say maybe your whole week is crazy, but Saturday evenings at 8 o'clock, everyone leaves you alone and you're going to take like an Epsom salt bubble bath and you're going to just relax. Perfect. That's your time with spirit. You can open up and you can see what comes through. Once you start setting that appointment, then spirit knows, hey, they're always there. This is a good time to talk to them. Otherwise, you might get a lot of messages through dreams because you're not setting up time. So if you're having a hard time sleeping or whatever, that could be part of it. Vienna asked a question about, if you're in a low vibration, you ask for guidance, how can you get that guidance? Spirit is always there for you. You want to set the intention, as I said earlier, to really connect with the highest source. That doesn't mean that you have to be as high as that frequency, but set the intention always to connect to your connection to the divine, whatever that's going to be, God or the archangels or some other deity or whatever. As long as you're putting that parameter in place, then I would say just be more open-minded. It's not always going to come as a vision. It's not always going to be something you hear. It's not always going to be something in your body, but you could be out in the world, and this is where nature totems come in handy, and you could see something and it really resonates. So spirit can speak through music, through billboards, through conversation. Someone says something that someone in your life used to say, and it's reminding you to do something. So all of that, there's different ways that spirit can kind of work through all the channels around you. So open up. Four of Cups card. Close your eyes and listen, or open your eyes and look at what's around you. There's something more. It's already there, would be my answer. Annalie Holm asked me a question about connecting with guides and angels. Is that the same energy? No, it's not. And there's different types of angels, so be specific. Ask for archangelic or higher. I always ask by name. So I mentioned a few. I usually use Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael. Metatron is great as well. You can work with Azrael if you want to, or Zerachiel, any kind of like death or rebirth angel if you need to. But know who you're talking to, know who you want to connect with, be specific with spirit, and then ask for the highest light. Say filter. You can usually ask for Michael or Gabriel, or you could just ask for God, whatever you want to call it, because it isn't it. You could, so whatever your name for God is, just say, please protect me and connect me with the highest possible guidance. That's it. Super easy. Angels are agents of the divine. Guides can be people or non-human energies, because like newsflash, it's not just humans in this big world out there. Call it what you want, but there are other life forms and other dimensions too. So make sure that you're asking for energy that aligns with the light, because not every dimension does, not everything out there does. So when you say, my spirit guide, you're safe. When you ask for archangelic energy, you're safe. And then if you ask for the divine or the archangels or your spirit guide to help connect you to other guides or energies that can bring you into that sort of high guidance, you'll be fine. Ancestral energy is good, but ancestral energy often carries with it baggage sometimes. So if you're connecting with, a human that you knew in life, they're still that human. They're heightened and they're sort of, better in the energy place that they're in, but they're still human and flawed. So you still may want to work with higher guides if you can. All right. All of those ascended guides are humans that have kind of gone to a higher plane. So there were some people that were living on this earth that we might call saints or things like that have kind of gone to a higher level. You can work with them too. All right. Just like everyday life, there are some spirits that are better than others. So ask for the best. Okay. Hopefully that helps you. You should trust the way you feel when you connect with spirit. And again, usually when you're around a high energetic source, there's this sense of heightening. Like it almost feels like you're on a roller coaster and this sort of rush comes through you. So you'll know if you feel bad or if you're afraid, disconnect, reconnect to source and say, that's not the right channel. Let's go higher. Okay. 2 more and then we're done because we're at time too. Rose, you asked how long did it take to become fluent proficient with the symbols and the meaning of the cards? I think you can actually achieve moderate fluency probably within 3 to 4 months. Like you'll be able to start to recognize some things. 3 to 4 years, you're pretty good. But I would say after 1 year, I think I knew most of everything, but it took a lot of practice. So don't put the cards down. Pick them up and don't put them down. Every day, look at them. Read for yourself. Look at the cards. Read up on them. With the internet now, you can Google stuff, and there's a lot of sites out there that can kind of help you with interpretations. But there are a few books. I'm not super behind any of them, which is why I'm not really advocating for them. The person that taught me had me buy a couple, and I read through them, and I'm like, some of the guidebooks are good, but it's going to come through practice. So the little white books that come in these, they're not going to be enough. They're a good starting point. I'll think about it. I'm not ready to endorse any particular book at this point, but practice is the main thing. Reading for yourself and reading for others, reading for friends, getting feedback on your reading. It's all really important. And then finally, Anne wrote this, I think yesterday or the day before. You said you liked watching the Sunday readings and you feel almost like it's going to church. Me too, actually. I feel like that. You wanted to know like if I feel lifted or heavier from readings, and the short answer is of course I do. So when it's a really good reading, and when there's like today was a great one, there's a lot of positive energy coming through, I usually feel great for the rest of the day. When I do private readings, and I'm doing I only see existing clients, so answering an FAQ on that. I'm not doing any new readings for new people at present time. But for some of my existing clients that I read for, if there's a really heavy day where maybe I have a couple of people that I'm talking to and there was just a lot that they unloaded, I have to get out of the house, take a walk, ground my energy, do something else, and basically get back into my body. I also, on a daily basis in my apartment, smudge because of what I do. Incense on a daily basis. I use, what can I think of it? Sage probably 2 to 3 times a week, just because it's so pungent and there's not enough windows here. So few times a week for the sage, but daily for incense because it tends to kind of dissipate faster. And then Palo Santo, again, a couple times a week. I like to mix it up. I don't use the same stuff all the time because I actually feel each one of these removes different kinds of frequencies. So I rotate through all the different types, and that helps. But I'm tired after something like this. Like I said, I will need to take a nap this afternoon. Apollo and I will snuggle up and I'll take a nap with my dog, and that helps. Having Apollo helps too, which is why he's in the other room right now because he's like, this is a lot, Dad. But Apollo helps me quite a bit. And I think there was a question about him. He did help open up my heart chakra. For any of you that have had pets, you know this for a fact. They are definitely spiritual beings. They definitely help us. And he keeps it real. And he's so nice. He doesn't bark. He doesn't do anything. Poor Virgo, last month I had to take him for a walk. It's the first time in like 4 years or 5 years that he's ever needed something like that. So he's a good boy. But yeah, I need to reconnect with other people because it takes a lot out of me. So thank you for allowing me to be present and do what I do. I hope this helped. I've done an FAQ before, or a Q&A rather before, and I know sometimes these aren't as popular, but I think that there's a lot of cool knowledge in here. I just can't link to all of it because it would take forever to put all those questions. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Let's do a final meditation today. I'm going to give you a chance to pick the instrument that you'd like me to do, and then we're going to wrap up. So what instrument would you like? Would you like me to use the pyramid or the singing bowl? And you get to vote on it. So if you've never seen the pyramid, here it is. It sounds like wind chimes. And most of you are familiar with my singing bowl. So I'll give you a chance to vote as I get set up here. And a couple of notes. If you're brand new, please hit that subscribe button. I'd like to get to another milestone and do something cool. So if you haven't already hit the thumbs up and subscribe, please subscribe. If you'd like to give back a little bit, you can do that right now. If you'd like to join, you can. We're going to vote again tomorrow for the Sunday reading. You can join me on social media while you're voting as well. And later on replay, you can hit the thanks button. Hey, buddy, we're going to meditate and then we're done, okay? I want to say hi to everybody before we wrap up. Come here, buddy. One last time with Apollo here, since he was being talked about. He said, Dad, I want to make one last appearance here. All right. Looks like the pyramid is what won. I know. And then we'll get you some food. He's always looking for a meal. All right, buddy. Mwah. Thanks for saying hi. All right, so we're going to listen to the singing pyramid, and then I'm going to walk this precious little dog. I'll say thanks to anybody that said gave back a little bit after we do this. So for now, I'd like you to just relax, and we're just going to do the singing pyramid today. So what I'd like you to imagine is just that you are in a nice receptive place, maybe outside looking up at the stars, and reminding yourself of your own power and your own abilities, because everything that we've been talking about today really is that you have the capacity to make things happen. All right, so let's get this started. Enjoy, take a nice deep breath, and just allow for this to bring in some love and light. Speaking of totems, we can hear a little dog in the background, not mine, but one from Spirit. The interesting thing is we did have that Fool card today coming through. One of the big pieces of the Fool card is that dog. And the dog is there to remind you to stay on that right path, to focus on what's in front of you. And I think that's a nice closing message that the universe wanted us to hear. Kudos to Apollo for always holding space in the background, being very polite and not barking, for all the dogs out there that do bark. Anyway, nice, funny little closing message there from Spirit. So I hope you all enjoyed what I did here today. Again, this is something that I don't do a lot. And it's been about 18 months or so, I think almost 2 years since I did the last Q&A. So if you like it, let me know in the comments below. If there's any other types of videos you'd like me to do, you could also put that in the comments below when this is on replay. I'll probably put a special post on my channel too, just to see what other types of videos you'd like me to do, because I feel like this is a good point in time to kind of solicit that feedback. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to take a couple moments here just to express some gratitude to all of you that gave back and either became a member or gave a small contribution today. You make Q&As and things like this possible. So I just want to say thank you. All right, everybody, though, if you've just joined and you hit subscribe, you're also helping me get to that next milestone, and I appreciate you just as much. All right, so let's take a look at the new members here. Looks like we got a couple of new ones here. So Jocelyn Christine, welcome. Xenia's Photoscope, welcome. Carol Hale, looks like you rejoined. Welcome back. Liz Avila, hello and welcome. Indria, can't pronounce the last name, but Indria, welcome. Let's see, we have Stephanie Graham, and yes, I think Stella just rejoined, so welcome back. All right, so now let's take a look at the folks that gave back with super stickers or super chats, and a reminder that, again, you can always give back on replay by doing thanks, and thanks is right by the share button. All right, Touche B336, always great to see you, almost always at the beginning too. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much. Anna Lee, welcome. Thanks for your question I answered earlier. KK, welcome. Thank you. Shelly, thank you as well. Carol Hale, Regina. Regina, big thanks to you. That was really a wonderful contribution. I appreciate it. Let's see. KSTJ Mom 1, thanks. Jasmine F, Rose, Diesel Girl, Lorna Smith, Jody Frazee, Karen, Tracy Lynn, Jaya Journeys. Let's see. Winine, I hope I said that correctly. Jocelyn, Vero, Bethan Shannon. Let's see. Arazu Shirkat, I hope I said that correctly as well. Cindy Toshik, Aaron Lavelle, Amy C, Jeannie Hart, Kathy Aram, I hope I said that correctly as well. Angela Tudor, Amitabha 108, Mad Monica, Angelica, Ms. Moses, Healed Aries, Ricky, Vicky Howell, Sitaras Tara, let's see, Norma, we'll just say Norma rather than the last name, Charlotte Abel, Dana McNamara, and Stella Morris. Thank you all so much for being present today. I appreciate your time and energy, and I wish you all the best. A reminder that I will be back on the weekend. So if you would like to connect with me, I'm going to put a quick link to my upcoming schedule here. So here you go. And thanks again to Maria Margarita, who helped with all of the moderation today. And let's see, a couple of new people at the end, Janice Semper, and let's see, Northern Lights, welcome. Good to see you as well. Wendy Wright, Beverly Kendall, and I think I hit everyone then. All right, everyone, have a great day, great weekend, and I will see you on Sunday. And next week, I'll be back. Let's see, I just did Taurus, so I'll be doing Gemini and Cancer. I'll be posting links so that you can follow those later. All right, in the meantime, take care, lots of love and light, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you again for allowing me to hit this milestone and for being a part of it. All right, take care. Bye-bye.